And a big welcome to you all. We're delighted to have you here with us for 3 week. I'm really delighted to have Sabrina Moore from Globe Ireland have us presenting a really interesting webinar on Spring Watch that I'll let Sabrina explain all about. So we do have a big group with us today, so please keep your microphones muted as we go through the session. You can use the chat box to answer any of Sabrina's questions or ask any of your own. We will have time at the end for a Q&A. So if you have any questions for us, you can pop them in there. And we'll also have a couple of polls pop up that you can answer. So if a teacher or somebody stays close enough to the laptop so you can get involved with answering any questions, that would be great. And we're going to start off with an easy question, just to get you guys thinking a bit about nature. And then once you've answered that, I will hand you over to Sabrina to get started. So my question for you guys is, what is your favorite season? Is it spring, summer, autumn, or winter? So pop your answers into the chat now, and I am going to leave you over to Sabrina to get us started.
Hi, everyone. Really delighted to be with you today. Okay, my favorite season is spring. Just love spring. So we're in spring at the moment, obviously. And I really love the way everything seems to come alive in this season after what always feels like a long winter. So I'm sure you've noticed, or you're noticing more and more, how we can hear the birds in the morning and in the evening. They're singing their songs, how there are more and more colors in the gardens, maybe in your schoolyard. So to me, it's a very exciting season. So today I'm going to tell you about trees, but here I have a picture of the same tree in the winter and in spring. And what I want to show you there is that in the winter, in temperate regions like Ireland, many trees are dormant. So, they may look like they're lifeless. They have no leaves on, but they're still alive. It's just that they're living at a much slower pace in the winter. Come spring, and they open their new leaves. So our green spaces, the gardens, the parks and the woodlands, they're greening up again. And in this webinar today, we'll chat about how special the green up of trees is for everyone, including us. So if you're ready, we're going to start our story. But before I begin this great story of green up, I have a question for you. So like us, just like us, trees and plants, they need food to grow. And my question to you is, to grow, trees need to eat. Their main food is air. Is it air? Is it soil? Is it rocks? So maybe have a little think among yourself, and then Claire will create a little poll and you'll be able to put your answer there. So you have to choose between air, soil, and rocks. What do trees eat? So you're very fast. We can see already a lot of answers popping in. Great. It's still going on, still see answers. I wonder, Claire, can we show the poll? At the moment, I just see end poll not showing.
Yeah, once we say end poll, we can then share it. So once we have all of our answers in.
Perfect. So maybe a few of you want to answer. I can see still a few responses coming in. Just a few more seconds. So, okay, we're going to stop here. So end poll and share results. So hopefully you can see that on your screen. Can you see that, Claire, from your end as well?
Yeah, perfect.
To my second screen. So the majority of you said soil. Nearly 1 in 9 among you said, 9 in 10 said soil. And just a few said air, and no one thought, trees eat rock. Okay, this is all very interesting. So I'm going to do a big reveal now, and we'll find out what they eat. And I think you'll be very surprised because trees eat air. And really, do you know anyone eating air? Apart from trees and plants, I don't. And it may be very surprising. And we're going to see how this works because trees and plants are very special. So one of trees and plants' secret is that they're amazing at chemistry. So what they do is that they use what is available near them and they transform it like a chemist in a lab to get their food. So in each leaf of a plant, there is a lab. It's just an image, of course, but I'm going to tell you what happens, and I think you'll agree with me. So the leaf is taking carbon dioxide from the air, and meanwhile, the roots of the tree and the vessels that run all along the trunk, they're bringing water from the soil to the leaves. So now we have carbon dioxide, it's a gas in the air, and water, the leaves. Then the leaves use energy from the sun to rekindle carbon dioxide and water. Ta-da! So now they're transformed thanks to the chemistry transformation. They're transformed into sugars and oxygen. So the tree is going to use the sugars to grow their new woody cells and grow, and also as energy for being alive. And it's going to release oxygen into the environment, which is really great for us and all the other animals because this allows us to breathe. So it's incredible. So that's how trees and plants make their food out of thin air. So I want to tell you a few other short stories about trees just to show how incredible they are. So trees help to protect our planet Earth, against climate change. Humans have been releasing a lot of carbon dioxide since the Industrial Revolution. And this, the problem is that this is changing our planet's climate. This is what you hear about as climate change. And trees and other plants on lands and in the ocean are actively using some of this excess carbon dioxide to build their bodies. That's what we just saw on the previous slide. So if it was not for them, the average global temperature would be much higher right now. So they are keeping our planet cooler. And the third story about trees is that they are carers. They provide food and shelter for many other forms of life. So this is a picture of an old oak, and they're really good at providing shelter and food to others. Actually, it's been, as many as 2,000 species have been recorded on old oaks, and they really depend on the tree for their survival. So they're just amazing, and I would like you to think for a few seconds. So if you could think about all the ways that trees are helping other plants and animals. So maybe have a little chat among yourself, and if you can enter your ideas in the chat box. How are trees helping other plants and animals? And there is no wrong answer. Just put all of your ideas there. They give shelter to animals. They give oxygen. Yeah. Acorns to squirrels, homes for squirrels. Absolutely. A home, nests, birds. Then you're going very quick. Then for animals, cleaner air, shelter. They take in bad air, they give out good air. They protect sheep, yes. They provide shade for animals. Nuts and seeds, absolutely. Food, can you give me an example of food that trees are providing? Bamboo for animal. Some of you did. Berries, absolutely. Berries, nuts, yes. Excellent. Apples. It's good for a good place for moss to grow. Absolutely. Lemons. Yes. Apples for baby deer. They're all great responses. So I let you work away, but I mean, you're spot on. There are just a few images of what trees do for others. So you mentioned all of those ideas. They provide nesting for birds, acorns, to squirrels. Many mammals and birds eat tree berries. Insects feed on their leaves or bark. Bees also. So a lot of trees have flowers, some that we can see well, like cherry blossoms, some that are very small or discreet, like oaks flower, for example. They have a small green flower, so we don't see it easily. But a lot of the flowers of trees provide nectar to bees as well. And then after pollination, there are berries or nuts. And yes, some of you mentioned it as well, moss. Sometimes plants grow on trees, especially in very wet areas, like the west of Ireland. We can see in old woodlands, we can see lichens and ferns growing on the trunk of the trees or the branches. It's amazing. So yeah, we can see how important they are for everyone, really. You mentioned oxygen as well, all of us. So when I consider trees, and we mentioned how they're amazing chemists, they are protecting our planet against climate change, they're providing food and shelter, oxygen. They're just amazing, and we should really give it up for them. But sometimes I wonder, are humans noticing at all? And I think from time to time, we need a little reminder of how wonderful nature in general is. And it's always been important for humans to know what is happening in nature and mark special dates with festivals. So today, we're March 21st, and today, equinox, which means that the day and night today are the same length. It's 12 hours for the day and 12 hours for the night. And from today, starting tomorrow, days are going to get slightly longer than the nights. And as a result, we're going to see big changes in nature, such as trees greening up. So maybe it's no wonder that we just celebrated St. Patrick's Day. I'm sure you did. I'm sure you had a lot of fun. And if you think of it, St. Patrick's Day was just a few days before the spring equinox, and it's probably no coincidence. It's because spring equinox is very important. And also in the Neolithic times, our ancestors built a passage tomb at Loughcrew, that's a place in County Meath, to mark the equinox. So it just shows how important that time of year always was for people. And people are still observing how nature is changing now, just in different ways, I guess. So NASA, for example, has satellites, as you know, that are going around the Earth. And one of them is called MODIS, and it's taking amazing pictures of vegetation, just to monitor and observe what vegetation looks like and how it's evolving. It's looking at the big picture. How are forests evolving? There are also scientists who study the canopy of trees using rafts. That's the image on the left. So imagine they're working at 40 meters high in the Amazon forest. That's really high. That's as high as a building. I just wonder, would you like this? I think I might. I'd say it's beautiful. There are also students from 40 schools in Ireland who are recording the daily temperature and monitoring the opening of leaves in their schoolyard with Globe. So thanks to long-term observations by our ancestors and by today's scientists and citizen scientists, there are a few things we know. So we know that green up, or when trees are opening their leaves and becoming green, we know that this is mostly driven by the warming of air temperature in spring. Okay, this sounds logical, but so why are not all trees opening their leaves at the same time? It turns out that trees have preferences. See, opening your leaves early in spring has pros and cons. On the one hand, the sooner you open your leaves, the sooner you start to grow, which is great. However, there is a risk. In spring, temperatures go up and down a lot. Have you noticed this recently? It may be warm at lunchtime and cold an hour later. Frost is a big threat to a tree. The best way to avoid damage by frost is to stay dormant, which means not opening your leaves. So trees have to decide, is it best to start greening up now, or is it best to wait a little further until the risk of frost is gone? Okay, I have another question for you, and there is going to be a poll that you're going to have to decide. You can take a guess. So make a prediction among the three options below. Which is the most risk-taking? 1, maple seedlings. So seedlings are very young trees, very small trees, maple seedlings. 2, old oaks. 3, birch and hazel trees. So by risk-taking, what I mean is that they prefer to take the risk of frost damage if this means that they can start growing sooner. Okay, over to you. Okay, so you've started answering the poll. We're going to wait until there are more guesses. Okay, great. Just a few more seconds. Put in your answer, quick, quick, quick. Okay, so I'm going to show you your answers. So we had pretty much an even responses. I think nearly as many of you thought it could be maple seedlings or old oaks or birch and hazel. Okay, so let's see what the correct answer is. And it's fine, you know, it's just guessing. So the answer is birch and hazel. Don't be disappointed if you didn't guess correctly. It's fine. So why birch and hazel? Also called pioneer trees. So their approach is to grow as quickly as possible before the taller trees shake them out. So taller trees like ash or oak trees. So they're very eager in spring to green up early, and they will take the risk of frost. Okay, then the second one, the second most risk-taking are the maple seedlings, and it's quite a cute story actually. The younger trees, the seedlings, they green up before the bigger maple trees do, the bigger trees that are next to them green up. So it could be that seedlings are more risk-taking. They're young, they take their risk, or it could be that the bigger trees that are likely to be their parents delay opening their leaves to give their youngsters a head start. And no one knows at the moment why, but this is something that we see happening. And finally, the old oaks or old trees in general in mature woodlands, they tend to take things slowly. They're tall, maybe wise, and know that there is no rush. It's better to open your leaves when things are 100% safe. Okay, so people who study trees have so many mysteries to solve. So if you're interested in the future on studying trees or anything in nature, there's so many questions that are not answered yet. It's so exciting for anyone curious. However, one thing that scientists have seen is that recently trees tend to green up earlier. So this graph with the up and down and different colors, this graph looks at when a tree in County Kerry, it was a beech tree, when it's opening its leaves. And it's a record that started in the 1970s. So compared to the 70s, this tree is greening up 3 weeks earlier now. So remember that the main trigger for trees to green up is the warming of temperatures in spring. So our springs are becoming warmer on average, and trees are responding to this by greening up earlier. Is this a good news? Well, it depends, but there is a piece of bad news. Remember, trees provide food and shelter for many other animals. And the problem is that when trees green up earlier, other species that depend on them may not get the memo and die. For example, the perfect timing for caterpillars to emerge is when trees have young leaves. Young leaves are nutritious to them, and they will eat a few. If the caterpillars emerge once the leaves are older, they cannot eat them because the leaves are too tough. The caterpillars will die, and there will be fewer butterflies in the summer. And because caterpillars are an important food for young birds, this may affect the bird population, etc. This sounds like a terrible news, but there are solutions. One way to help is to plant a variety of trees and plants that green up at different times. This way, caterpillars will be sure to feed themselves. Another simple thing to do is to let the grass grow. Long grasses can also be shelter and food for insects and other animals. So how about keeping some of the grass long at your school, garden, or GAA club? Make sure to tell other people how special trees and plants are. Remember, they are super chemists, they protect the planet from climate change, and provide food and shelter for many other plants and animals. This week is Tree Week. Make sure to celebrate them and look out for them this week and beyond. So I have an activity that you can do if you want over the coming weeks. It's to observe green up. So if you want to be like a scientist this spring, scientists have many different qualities, very similar to artists, actually. They're curious, they're imaginative, means that they have a really good imagination, and they are observant. They look at things very closely. So how about you find a tree that you like, and you observe one branch of that tree. So first you look at the branch and you try and see where the buds are. There are little knots on the branch. and you sketch what they look like in the first box. Then in the second box, you use your imagination and you try and think about how that bud will look like once it's opened. You just sketch something in the second box. And then after the Easter holiday, you come back to the same branch and you sketch what you see. And you'll see if your prediction was correct and if nature is maybe much more creative than I thought. So to find your branch again, it's not always easy. It's best to tie a little piece of thread to it so that you know which one it is. So thanks everyone. We're going to have a little Q&A. If you have any question for us, we'd love to hear your questions.
So there's actually a question there in the chat box, Sabrina. Someone asked just at the end of your question about how do trees help, and somebody asked, is it true that trees provide us with lots of the medicines that we take?
Very interesting. Absolutely. Trees and plants. And I know oftentimes the Amazon, you know, when people say, oh, we need to keep the Amazon for itself, but also the Amazon is a treasure of medicine. So it's so important on so many levels. Absolutely.
Brilliant. And there's a few more coming in now. So this is a really hard one. So how many different types of trees are there in Ireland? So I don't think there is an answer to that, really, is there, Sabrina? Like, we have probably 20 types of native trees, which are trees that have been here since the Ice Age. But there is lots of other common trees, and then someone might have a tree in their garden, or there might be a tree in the botanic gardens from abroad, but there's a lot of different types. I don't know if you have an exact answer to that, Sabrina. I'm guessing you don't.
I think I would have said the same as you. Yeah, we have, is it 28? I mean, it's debatable, but like between 20 and 30 native trees. And then, yeah, I mean, it's possible to bring a tree from other countries into Ireland, and some of them do really well. So people have done that over the centuries. So we have so many different types.
And someone has asked, what is your favorite type of tree?
Wow. I love a lot of trees. I think in terms of the species, I really like the oaks. When I was your age, I was playing in woodlands in France, and they were oak woodlands. So I have a very special relationship with oaks, having climbed a few. But yeah, I like most trees.
Me too. I'd say my favorite is probably the silver birch. I have a good few planted outside. Well, I haven't planted them, but they're in a green opposite where I live. So I love to look at them out the window. So another school has asked, what is the lifespan of a tree? So that really depends on what type of tree it is. So different species will live longer than others. And also, you know, trees can be exposed to different kind of threats, and, you know, they can be infected with diseases like we do that would reduce their lifespan, or if they have less sunshine or water, that can reduce it as well. So I think the oldest tree in Ireland is about 800 years old.
Wow.
So there's three trees that claim to be the oldest tree. There's one in Maynooth, I think there's one in Kerry, and I can't remember where the other one is. But that would be unusually long. But many trees can live over 100 years.
So much longer than us.
Definitely,
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And it will be interesting to know, you know, probably needs more studies, how their decision making affects how long they live. I wonder, do the trees that do the risk takers live longer or shorter? I wonder.
As far as I know, you know, oaks and beech and you know, the ones that tend to live longer, they tend to be more conservative. So they would tend to actually open their leaves slightly later in spring. And they grow slowly as well. They grow like very dense wood, whereas the ones that are taking the risk, the birch and hazel, they tend to be softer wood and they tend to grow fast, but not for as long. So looks like the ones that don't take much risk are, live longer. Not that it's a lesson for us. We're different to trees.
Yeah. So we've got loads of questions here. So we've been asked, what will happen when trees get chopped down?
What's the question exactly? I guess,
yeah, what are the negatives? So there's loads of negatives, isn't it? Like straight away, there could be animals that are losing their home or their source of food, and you're losing the ability of something to take in carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. It can affect the soil. So the roots of a tree are really important for holding the soil together, and also carbon being stored in the soil. It can cause flooding. There's loads of potential problems with chopping down trees. So there's lots of negatives. A lot of time now when trees are chopped down, it's so much better to start replacing them immediately so that you have new food sources for animals and that the soil isn't just being left bare. That's one really important thing to think about.
Yeah, super important to protect the trees we have. Of course, we can plant new ones, but protecting the ones we have is so important. Like an old tree provides more shelter and more food than younger trees. So, I think planting new ones need to keep on happening, but protecting ones we have really is key.
Yeah. So another question we have is, why are animals so attracted to trees?
We should ask them the question.
Yeah.
I suppose in countries like Ireland and Europe in general, our climates mean that trees are doing really well because we have loads of rain and loads of light, at least in spring, summer, and early autumn. So it's the perfect conditions for trees to grow. And I guess animals in Ireland and in Europe evolved in their environment, made the most of their environment, and because trees were such a key presence in the landscape, they've evolved to live alongside and with all aspects of the tree. So yeah, we've seen how important they are.
Yeah, and some trees and plants will try and attract animals. So they might have their flowers or their berries a particular color that they know animals like or that they can see easily, or they might give off smells that attract them. So, trees rely on animals as well to do things like spread their seeds and to pollinate their flowers. So it's not just trees aren't just doing animals a favor by producing delicious fruit or flowers that they want. They actually want them to eat their fruit because that means they'll help them spread their seeds a bit gross sometimes in their poo. It's really helpful for them. So that's why a lot of berries on trees are red, because animals will spot them and come and eat them. So it's a relationship that goes both ways.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Another question here, why does Ireland no longer have native forests? So that's a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, there is still some small patches of native forest. There is very little. I suppose we used to have a huge amount of oak, would have been our a really important native tree that we had a lot of, and much of that was cut down. One big reason was that oak was a good type of wood to build boats with. So a lot of the British Navy was built with wood from Irish oak trees a long time ago. That's one reason. We do have much fewer native forests or native trees than we have non-native. So a lot of non-native trees were planted because they maybe grow faster, and the forestry industry wants trees that grow quickly that they can use to make paper or to sell for other reasons. So it would be much better if we had more native trees, because, like Sabrina was saying, all the animals have evolved with them. They're used to them. They suit them. That's the type of food that they can eat. So that is unfortunate that we don't have as many native forests as we do non-native.
And the native forests in Ireland are just beautiful. So even though there are fewer, so behind me, the photo is actually of a native woodland in County Fermanagh. Absolutely, absolutely beautiful, full of sounds and colors, and just want to stay there forever. The good news is that there are plans by the Irish government, to develop the native woodlands much more, redevelop them in Ireland. So it will take a lot of time, obviously. You can plant a lot of trees. Planting a lot of trees is important, but the woodland takes time to happen. As Claire was saying, it's a web of relationships between insects and plants and animals. So that takes hundreds of years, but eventually we can get a lot of those beautiful, stunning forests back. We just need to be patient, and we also need to start now. So,
another good question here. Can you explain why the number of ash trees which are used to make hurls are on the decline?
mm-hmm.
Do you want to answer that, Sabrina?
Yeah, I guess there is still a lot of ash trees around in Ireland, but they're not doing great. They are, sick. There is a fungi that is making them, I suppose, just to make it simple, sick. They don't grow as well, and they may even die. It's called the ash dieback. So this is what is happening to them. And unfortunately, a lot of the trees are not doing well. But it looks like some of the trees are resistant to the disease. So maybe in the future, we may see a decline in ash trees, but maybe there will be a bounce back at some point. Hopefully, some of them will be resistant, and then their offsprings will be. So so crossing fingers for the ash tree, such an important tree in Ireland.
Definitely. And guys, if you want to learn more about diseases that can affect trees and how they fight them, our webinar tomorrow is all about that. So you can register for that on our event page. Here's a good question for Tree Week. Where would you advise to plant a tree? In the sun or in the shade? I think definitely the sun, guys. Sabrina's diagram kind of outlined that, didn't it? So yeah.
It can be tricky in Ireland though, with wind. So you have to look at as well at you have to look at your site and look at what is positive for the tree and what is negative. And wind can be an issue for young trees. So if it's an area that is nicely sheltered from the wind, I'd say in the sun. If it's really, really wind swept, maybe you want to put it behind a hedge initially, grow, and overtake the hedge, but initially the hedge can be helpful as well.
Yeah, so I know a few people are leaving messages that they have to finish up. That's fine. If anybody has to leave, we'll thanks for coming and we'll say goodbye. Sabrina and I will just answer a few more questions that are here. What is your least favorite tree? I don't know if I have a least favorite tree.
No, I don't.
I'd like to see, I prefer to see native trees planted. Sometimes when I see trees that look like they should be in a desert or somewhere else, I would think, oh, what's that doing here? But I'm sure I would like to see it if it was in the desert. Let's see. How long does it take a tree to grow? It's an interesting one. I know you have some apps that map that a bit, Sabrina, but I guess it does just depend on the species, doesn't it?
It does.
Some trees are much quicker than others.
Exactly, the long-lived ones like oak and beech, they can continue growing for hundreds of years. So and some trees maybe have like a fruit tree in your garden, an apple tree or a cherry tree, and I know there's some in my parents' garden, and they're kind of getting to the end of their life. They're like 40 years old. That they've given us loads of fruits. They've been so generous, but that's it. It's the end of the journey for them. So it really depends.
Yeah, I'm going to put a little resource sheet in the chat box that shows you how you can work out how old a tree is. So a lot of people just think it's the tallest tree. So it's a bit like humans. I'm sure whoever's the tallest person in your class might not be the oldest person in your class. And it's the same with trees. It's usually the widest tree that is the oldest. So you can try and work it out by giving a tree a hug. So say if you hug a tree and your fingers can touch on the other side, then that tree is probably less than 25 years old. If you can get just one hand around it, one fist around it like this, it's probably less than 5. And if you can get 2 hands around it like this, it's probably less than 10. But that's how long they take to get wide. How long they take to grow tall, it really depends on what kind of tree they are. Someone has asked, are holly trees native?
They are. One. Yeah, they're a beautiful tree, evergreen, beautiful berries in the autumn. Yeah, they are. They are.
Yeah, they're one of our only evergreen native trees. We don't have, or one of our only native evergreen trees. We don't have very many of the Scots pine as well. And I think those might be the only ones we have. Someone asked, what is the most common tree in Ireland? You know, I looked this up before because every time we do a webinar, it's like top trumps. All the questions are always, what's the strongest, fastest, tallest? But you know, I can't remember. Well, the most common is Sitka spruce, which is a non-native tree that we grow for forestry. It's the ones if you're ever driving and you see a huge number of trees growing all next to each other that look a bit like Christmas trees. Those are Sitka spruce. So those are the most common. I can't remember what the most common native tree is though. Possibly ash. I'm not sure. Let me see, what other ones do we have? Will trees decline in the future? I hope not. I think a lot of countries are making an effort to increase the number of trees. So that would be a big part of most countries, like climate action plans, is to increase trees being planted. Lots of countries have targets of how many trees they need to plant in the next 10 years. So I would hope that there is an increase in trees as opposed to a decline, and not just by people planting them, but by trees self-seeding or basically planting themselves. That's what the hope would be. I don't know what the exact targets are, but we'd like to think they'll increase, I guess, decrease.
If you don't mind, Claire, I'll take the last one. What was the first tree in Ireland? I don't think any of us can tell. I wasn't around, Claire either. Neither no. Your teacher, would you believe? But I think we might have a really nice answer by Rob maybe on Thursday. Rob is doing a webinar on trees and myth and stories and folklore. And I think in one of the myths explains what was the first tree in Ireland. So you might mention that, I don't know, but if not, you can ask him the question, because it's, yeah, so it's a mythical tree that is in some of Irish stories. And it's a tree that is still around in Ireland nowadays. So tune in on Thursday.
There you go. There you go.
The oldest tree, maybe, Claire, last question, sorry.
Oh yeah, questions. Well, like I said, in Ireland, there's 3 different trees that say that they are the oldest, roughly 800 years. One of them is a yew tree, Y-E-W-U, that is in Maynooth University. Yew is a tree that grows, lives for a very long time. But there are other trees that are over 1,000 years old in other countries outside of Ireland. So I'm not sure what the oldest tree in the world is, but in Ireland, it's about 800 years old. But there's there's 3 different places that claim that they have the oldest tree. And it can be hard to get an exact year without harming them. So they can kind of more estimate.
Okay, the old yew.
The old yew, yeah. So they're a lovely tree. Some of you might you might have seen them a lot of times. They're growing by themselves, or sometimes in churches and graveyards you tend to find yew trees. So yeah, I would say big thanks to Sabrina for that. It was really interesting, and thanks everybody for coming along. It's great to have you. Hopefully you'll join us for some of our other webinars this week and try out some of our activities. Thanks for all the great questions as well. You had lots of them, so which is brilliant to see. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy your day, get a chance to spend some time outside with some trees and see what you have on your grounds. Bye,
Thanks so
everybody.
much. Have a good tree week.